Well, let's do this right. Okay, meeting is being recorded. Welcome to the IIBA Tampa Bay, Florida chapter study group in November. This is our 12th class. And we have a mission statement goal. Our mission is to bridge the gap between industry leaders and business analysts by building partnerships with professionals, educators, and employers so that we may empower, instruct, and engage the Tampa Bay IT community. You can link with us in a variety of ways. We have a website, we've got Meetup, we've got Facebook, we've got 2 different kinds of LinkedIn groups that you can join or get to us through. Our board is led by our president, Cliff Gray, who is online with us right now. Lori is our vice president of finance. Caitlin and Priscilla are board members at large. We will be electing a new board very soon, so if you're interested in participating, depending on your bandwidth, come and talk to us. Our study group is led by myself and Tiffany Gardner. You can contact either one of us through LinkedIn. Our LinkedIn IDs are shown right there. I am the Vice President of Career and Professional Development for the Tampa Bay IIBA, and Tiffany is not on the board here, but she is contributing her time, talent, and treasure to help us get the study group going and keep everything going well. Bob Churchill is online with us, as you can see. Bob has an awesome website that has a really good variety of information for the business analyst as well as people in related professions. He is here because he has passed the CBAP certification. He knows how the test works and he can give us some analysis and insight. We are going to move on into our attendance here. Well, maybe we will. I see that we've got, that's ironic, isn't it? It's showing me that one, but it's not giving me, okay. Let's see who we have. We have Ilya. Come on. I'll give you an uppercase Y there. Leslie's not here. Sid is here. And Cliff, I think I got everybody else already. So if someone shows up in the next few minutes, we'll give them credit for being here. Today is November 9th. This is, again, our 12th study group. We have kind of made a milestone. 12 is a pretty cool number. We will not be having a study group next week. No, sorry. We will have a study group next week, but not the following week, which is the week of Thanksgiving. So we will once again be going over the material we went over last week today. That is the strategy analysis, which is chapter 6. Analysis. Last time we went over it, we got a score of 60%. We're going to try to beat that today. And welcome to everyone who is currently online with us. So let me close this down. Minimize this. Strategy analysis. Let's get this started. Well, there we are. Begin new exam. We are doing the strategy analysis chapter. At least that's our attempt today. I signed into it earlier. I'm positive that I can get in. I'm actually in. So far, they know who I am, so we're good. after we go through each of these chapters, we can, if you'll look down at the bottom of my page on the right-hand side, we can do the CBAP exam simulation, which is a mixture of the different chapters questions in the same percentage that they're used in the CBAP version 3 exam. It also provides feedback the same way it does for this one, but right now we're just going through it a chapter at a time so people can have time to study in a progressive manner. Well, let's see if I can figure out why this is not loading very quickly. Those of you that are online, has the time change messed with your schedule very much?
Not for me personally, but my boss was late to a bunch of meetings.
Uh-oh. Well, goodness.
Yeah, I almost wonder if that's what's going on here.
Yeah, the computer's having a time change problem.
No,
Yeah,
no, we don't have some of our regulars.
I know.
By Tuesday, they should have figured it out.
Well, we agree with you.
By the way, the Pittsburgh IIBA had their monthly meeting yesterday, and Angela Wick presented. So, you must know her, Thea.
The name again?
Angela Wick. She was
Yes.
big honcho in editing the last version of the BABOK, among many other things.
Angela was actually the person that coordinated some of my projects whenever we wrote the BABOK. So did she do a presentation?
Yeah.
Well, guys, I apologize. My screen has actually, I'm not even able to move my cursor. So let me, oh, well, maybe we're going. Here we go again. So let's try it. Come on. That's not what I told it to do. Okay.
Yeah, we're not seeing anything. Just so you know.
Are you seeing my screen at all?
Nope.
No.
Okay. It
It
says I'm still
also
screen.
changed my view.
Let me stop sharing and reshare then.
The interesting thing about hearing Angela's presentation and all the ones I heard at the Orlando PSBAW is that essentially, A lot of people are saying the same things, and B, I basically never hear, very, very rarely, ever hear anyone say anything that is not already an implicit part of my framework, the way I think about it. So, that's good, that a lot of people are coming to similar conclusions and understandings. And B, I really believe that the way I think about things is very valuable.
Okay. I'm glad to hear that. That reinforces your belief that if other people are agreeing with you, maybe you were right, right? I mean, you had already made the decision that you thought this, but it's kind of cool whenever other people agree with you.
Sure.
Okay, I apologize, guys. I'm getting the message that my connection is unstable, but I haven't done anything different. Good thing we started recording this, right? Okay, until you can see what I see, I can start reading this to you. Maybe. Rhonda is a BA reviewing the issues that surfaced on a similar project to the one she's currently working that was closed 2 years ago. What would be the value in reviewing the past issues from a similar project? A, reviewing past issues could help identify the fix so the team will have to recreate the wheel. B, reviewing past issues will help Rhonda understand which stakeholder groups were impacted and so will assist in the stakeholder identification. C, reviewing past issues and their fixes could help establish the amount of money needed for the contingency reserves. Or D, reviewing past issues could help identify risks for the current project.
I like the first one and the last one, but probably the first one the most.
I have exactly the same opinion.
Excellent. A and D. Who else has an opinion?
We need Sid and Ilya to weigh in. We should
We
be talking.
I'm gonna go with A.
Okay, Ilya, what do you think?
Yeah, maybe A, but can you repeat the question once again?
Yes. Rhonda is a BA reviewing the issues that surfaced on a similar project to the one she is currently assigned to that was closed 2 years ago. What would be the value in reviewing past issues from similar projects?
The A option, if you can read it again.
A is reviewing past issues could help identify the fix so the team won't have to recreate the wheel.
Yeah, that sounds suitable.
Okay, let's check A. Well, my internet connection is telling me that D is correct. A would be, while true, it's more helpful to prevent the issue from reoccurring. D is reviewing past issues could help identify risk for the current project. The reasoning is manifested risks are issues, typically using the lessons learned technique to proactively manage risk to prevent issues. Guys, I apologize. This is just, I can't even get back to the email that gives me the link to the meeting. So I'm just going to keep reading until we get there. As part of the initial strategy exercise, the business analyst was required to come up with a method to capture how enterprise creates, delivers, and captures value for and from its customers. For the above scenario, answer question: which technique would provide the required information? A SWOT analysis, business model canvas, glossary, or business capability analysis?
D.
I've got one D. What else? Who else wants to answer?
I'm in favor of that.
Okay, got two. Let's answer it. And the correct answer is B, the business model canvas. A business model canvas describes how an enterprise creates, delivers, and captures value for and from its customers. D is incorrect because the business capability analysis describes what an enterprise in whole or part is able to do. This technique may provide essential information as input, but does not answer the question. Okay, let's try number 3.
Business model canvas is one of the 50 techniques. It's good to review those as a separate thing.
Yes.
As a practical matter, you will get probably 10 questions that directly reference those. It's good to know them. Whether you need to know any particular one is kind of random. The more you know about all of them, the better. In any given person's career, you won't use many of them. You'll use 10 a lot, another 10 some, or 15, and a bunch never. I've never heard of business model canvas. I've never used it. It is totally valid. And if other people use it, that's great. I never memorized that one, but
Yeah, same question I have. Like, is it really like somebody's using it in their career? I mean, have people used?
Well, I can tell you that whenever I wrote the techniques chapter, that was one of them I was assigned to write because people had said that they were using it.
It would be also
someone uses it. Any individual uses some and not others. That's
right.
what I'm
Absolutely.
saying.
The disclaimer with the techniques chapter is these are techniques that are commonly used by business analysts around the world. These are the ones that the majority of business analysts use on a regular basis. It is not exhaustive, and it doesn't mean that you're going to use all of these as well.
So those which are given in the BABOK are frequently used, those 50 or something.
They had been identified as the most frequently used techniques, and I can guarantee that some techniques are used regionally or in countries that we don't live in because the BABOK is designed for a global audience.
Okay.
Okay.
Many are so general, everyone uses them.
Yes. Okay, I apologize, but I cannot get into the system. I can either reboot or we can see if that speeds us up. I can do it verbally or we can abandon the meeting. Which of those 3 options do you want me to do?
Try rebooting.
Okay, I'll do that right now. While I reboot, I'd like to have a conversation with our participants. Where are you in your career? And how is taking the exam going to help you, so we can be sure that we are gearing this in a direction that's going to be most beneficial? Sid, will you start, please?
Sure. Okay, so I manage like a team of analysts right now, and I am looking to obviously get my certification so then I can create a program within within Centene, the company I work for, create like a certification program within that organization, right, for all the analysts who are going to be there. So again, I
Right.
have a bigger, just overall goal in mind once I get my certification, which is again to start a whole department of certifications for all the analysts within the organization. So that's my plan.
That's excellent. Do you feel that participating in the rewrite of the BABOK would be beneficial to you and your organization?
Possibly, but I'm just worried about passing right now.
I understand that. I understand that. And the rewrite probably isn't going to happen for another year. But what I'm trying to do right now is identify what needs to be improved, what was left out, what needs to be left out. How do we need to structure it more efficiently so that it introduces the business analysis profession and practices to the new person as well as the experienced person? Because
Yeah,
as
but
we've seen,
brought up-
some of this isn't
you brought up an
reality.
interesting point earlier, though, like I didn't really realize, but you mentioned that this is for a world audience, so that may be tough to contribute to if
Well,
you don't
I
have enough
agree,
perspective.
but I think we can simplify it considerably so that more people can understand it instead of sometimes it seems like it's written to try to impress people, you know, a little too complex.
Oh, I'm all for dumbing it down.
Let's call it
It doesn't
simplification, not
have to
dumbing down.
be dumbed down. It needs to be streamlined.
I agree.
It should be as simple as possible, but no simpler.
Right. We want it to be effective and informative, but not any more complex than we have to make it.
Sure.
Ilya, how about you? How is this going to change or impact your career?
Well, so first of all, while I'm doing this certification and I'm learning a lot, that was one of other reasons. So I started to read BABOK a long time ago, and then I dropped, and then kind of returning to it right now, finding a lot, especially in how to implement, how to use business analysis in agile environment, because all our projects are agile or Scrum based, and the role is there's no like what used to be business analyst, now being called Scrum Masters, product owners, proxy product owners. So all that kind of unclarity around the business analysis practices. So I was just even thinking after completing that and like lining up in my head, also propose that like introduce those practices and where I am in the department where I'm working in. And at the same time, it's like extending your knowledge about different ways of doing things, and I also see gaps. And having that in the resume also, of course, can help in extending in other companies.
I agree.
Yeah, that's the thing. Still, like to me, what I learned at this point, I mean, there's a lot of valuable information. There are a lot of things like examines, checks, how exactly you know the BABOK word, like in word by word, but it's not focused on is that really the real life, if it really will help in real life situation, right? Because like 50 techniques, possibly people will use 10% of those techniques in real life, right? Because you don't,
Right.
especially in agile projects, you don't have time to create all that kind of documentation. You have several projects assigned usually to you, and you have to be on top of them for all of them. Like, so how you will handle that, for example, right? If you have 3
Right.
projects assigned, how you will manage all that amount of documentation will that bring the need. So yeah, that may be part. I don't know, maybe we'll still have that in BABOK, like how to smartly apply all those techniques, not just try to go through this
Right.
process for every project, but tailor it as per the need.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the cornerstones of Agile is you do what's needed for the project at that moment. And not all of these techniques are needed for every project ever.
Yep.
Well, I am starting to get my screen back. Cliff, are you planning on taking this certification test?
You probably not. The Microsoft tests are more in my realm.
Why don't you
But
tell
it
us tell us about your job real quick, Cliff? I don't think anyone here except for myself and Bob know what you do, and it's pretty exciting.
Well, I work for a Microsoft partner called Power Objects. They're one of the top 1% global partners for Microsoft. Won many awards and such. And I've even been contracted out to Microsoft through them for several projects. But we implement Microsoft, mostly dynamic systems worldwide. We do big companies from True Green, or that's one that I can say. There's a lot of them I can't say, but some of them are signed on partners that we can advertise that we've done. One, it's almost an annoyance, but it's really good thing for our company is we have been given by Microsoft many projects that have failed with other partners. Actually, two of the ones I'm on right now were run by other partners. I think one went through two partners before they got to us. And I know one went through at least one other partner. So we, like I said, I don't know if it's a good thing. It might just show how good Power Objects is, but we've been getting a lot of enterprise level 10,000 user plus type projects that have failed other places that we inherit and take on. Yeah, I think one that I could say is a company called All Data, which is owned by AutoZone, is a big one too that we've been doing. So now my specialty in that Microsoft stack is data, data migrations, data integrations, Azure Data Factory, all the Azure components, Kingsway Soft, SSIS, SQL, freaking all kinds of stuff. So, but basically we do SSIS and Kingsway Soft as an add-on to SSIS to bring data from one system to the other, and all the fun things that are involved in doing that. A 3 here might need to be translated to a 4 over there. Those kinds of things. Lots of fun.
You were telling me about Kingsway Soft, how it can replace data logically and give it real replacements, like changing an address to a different address.
Oh,
so
we
it's
have
not just junk data.
Oh, no. Yeah, we were having a discussion because we have some, financial and banking and those kinds of things, institutions. And actually it's probably for a lot of places, but usually when you do projects like this, you set up multiple environments. So you'll have your prod, you'll have your test, you'll have your dev, maybe a UAT. So when you create those other environments, a lot of times you just take a copy of prod and create a UAT and a test and a dev, and you work your way through. And the problem with that is in certain environments, certain industries, you're taking a copy of production data, putting it down on those lower environments, and people might be able to see it that shouldn't be. They're testing your system, they're helping develop your system, and they're seeing production data. So you have to be careful. So yeah, Kingsway Soft, there's other tools, but Kingsway Soft in particular has masking capabilities. So like when you do addresses, it can not only replace an address, but it replaces addresses with valid addresses. So you don't have 123 Street being replaced by ZZZZZ. It's actually replaced by an another physical address. So if somebody steals your data, it looks like real data. It's just, it's not. It's kind of
Gotcha.
cool. It does the same thing with social security numbers, birthdays, those kinds of things. I have not done anything like that, but we've got some guys in our group that do. I haven't done many financial projects, but it was one of those data COE kind of things that we had just the other week that they were talking about it, and it was very, very interesting, kind of cool feature. And then they have a feature that goes the other way, standardizing addresses. That's one that we play with because everybody in the world would like to standardize addresses to the point where you could make it a primary key or a matching key
Yeah, so
across
do you have
systems.
do you have an API plugin with USPS?
You can do things like that, but you have multiple choices, because you got USPS, you got UPS. I mean, all the delivery services offer
Yeah.
something like that. UPS, USPS, FedEx, and I think what's that other yellow one that I can't think of.
DHL.
DHL. There you go. They all offer, I think, something along those lines, and then there's of course a lot of third-party products, but the issue is some are still different than the other.
Right.
You almost need a worldwide standard. Good luck with that.
I have 2 valid addresses. So if you label my city as either Davenport or Champions Gate, it'll get to me. Everything else is the same. And different systems default to different choices. And then let's not even get into what they do with the street address with an apartment number in it.
Oh yeah, no, that's another nightmare. But we were actually talking about this earlier today, trying to standardize addresses. And it's one thing to try and do it across the US. It's a whole nother thing to do it worldwide. But we even made a comments like, it almost get to the point where you could do longitude, latitude for everybody. But
Right.
how realistic that would be. My father was actually a postmaster in the post office. He's been retired for a long time, but back in the day, I remember him having conversations about, I don't know if you remember the initiative Zip +4.
Yep.
And how people would fight and bitch and complain and whine about 4 additional numbers. But
Right.
those 4 additional numbers got a piece of mail within 4 houses without seeing anything else on the envelope.
Wow.
Just that 5 digits and those 4-digit codes. And believe it or not, it did get initiated. They are using it. If you ever notice on your some of your mail, you'll see a printout of a bunch of little bars. Some will look tall, some will look short on the bottom right-hand corner.
Yeah.
That's your actual Zip +4 in computer code, and that's scannable by a laser, just like the scanner at the grocery store. And that's how they sort your mail.
Yeah.
So, they've been using it for years, even though people fought it, but it's just one example, a simple little change like that when you talk about standardization and how people will fight it. And that was just 4 additional digits. Could you imagine if there was a worldwide actual standard that made some big changes, but was worthwhile, how people would fight it? We could almost do a BA symposium on that, how people fight change, whether it's good or bad,
Right.
going forward. But yeah, we do all kinds of fun stuff. Microsoft, it's scary. people don't think of Microsoft when they think of big data organizations. They think of the Googles and the Facebooks, and I saw somewhere where they said, you know, Microsoft's cloud structure is bigger than everybody else's. And some of those bigger ones, it's bigger than a couple of them combined. It's just that
Wow.
big. But they do more with companies. Companies are getting rid of their infrastructure, so they put their servers, their data, everything else in Azure. You'll hear that word, Microsoft Azure, which is basically their servers, their platform, and you make it available on the cloud.
Right.
It's the way everything. I mean, I hate that term cloud. And I can.
Everything has a place.
You're getting me started on a conversation, but yeah, cloud. All that means is your stuff is on somebody else's server, and you're
Yep.
using the internet to get to it. And when you tell people that, it's amazing how many people are like, "No, that's not what it means." It's like, yeah, that's exactly what it means. And
Yes.
it cloud. One of the problems I have with that terminology is I'm an old Novell guy. I remember having to assign IP addresses to computers manually and everything else. And when you used to draw diagrams, if you didn't know where something went on the diagram, you would draw a line and you draw a cloud and you would have the diagram go into the cloud and then come out to the cloud on another section of the diagram. And that's how you would show your flow of data. So cloud was representative of a place that data went into that you didn't know anything about, and then eventually come back out to you someplace else, and then you could map it.
Right.
Cloud is almost like a black hole. It was just funny how that term has become used the way it has now, versus where it came from. But
Wow. Well, that's interesting.
but
I-
yeah.
I apologize. I am still struggling here. I can do it verbally if you want me to,
Well,
but it's frozen otherwise.
Let me share one thing. I said
Yeah, sure.
this earlier. I really believe that the drawing and the framework that I've come up with makes this stuff so easy to understand and puts everything else in context. And I really hope to get into the BABOK. For example, chapters 3 to 8, which we're reviewing now, they have all these techniques you can think of as being parallel, and they're all the kind of standalone activities that BAs do through an engagement or a program or what have you. And my framework makes that explicit what you do in time. And it also makes explicit that if you understand the context of all those things you're doing through time, you will understand how those apply to both Agile and hybrid and waterfall and every other thing. There's an entire scenario that isn't even mentioned in the BABOK that I've identified. So there's a lot going on. I really want to angle to get this understanding out there, because it helped me when I took the exam, and I've done nothing but formalize and codify it and clarify it since.
I can't see the screen at the moment. Are you displaying that right now, Bob?
No, I'm not sharing.
Why don't you share that? Because I just restarted my computer again. maybe this will be something that can help us.
Yeah, we'll turn this into an impromptu COE. You guys okay with that, Sid and Ilya? I mean, you guys are the ones studying.
Well,
Absolutely.
we all are, but
Yeah.
potentially what Bob has is going to be useful and beneficial.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm good.
And when I hear the word simplification of what's written in BABOK, I'm right away interested.
Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be. Sid, while he's getting that set up, in your organization, do you have requirements that BAs must meet? For instance, do you have to have a stakeholder list? Do you have to have a risk document? Do you have anything like that?
So back in the day, we did, like, we even had like a requirements management tool, right, that we used. And it would kind of like set those guidelines, right? Like you have to fill all this stuff in, and then they would be sent for approval. And then like, so we had a tool that would kind of like help that whole process. But now, right at the moment, all of that tool has been kind of like sunsetted and no one uses it. And so it's just free for all at the moment.
Okay.
So I got to bring back some order. So that's what I'm trying to do.
It's kind of like a pendulum, isn't it? You get too far one direction and then you get too far the other direction, and you got to find where the perfect balance is.
Yeah.
You ready, Bob?
Sure. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you look at an engagement, and let's think of it in terms of some identifiable project or standalone piece of work, these are all the things that you do. So there's a project management wrapper for it. They're solving the actual business problem or identifying it. There's figuring out what's going on now, incorporating data, figuring out what you need to do, that's requirements, which are an abstract form of the to-be state. Then there's the design, which is a detailed form of the to-be state. Then there's implementation and test and acceptance. And you can actually shorten that down to just these really 6 phases plus data. So figure out what your problem is, figure out what's going on now, figure out what you actually need, figure out how you're going to meet those needs, then actually meet them, then test that. And so I go into a lot of details, which I will not bore you with. There are some things that unify all this. All right, so here's basically the summation of everything. So if you work through a project like this, you iterate with different stakeholders and so on until you get the intended use into a form that you all agree on, right? And then and that's identifying the business problem, figure out what you're going to do and why, what problem you need to solve. Then you figure out what's going on currently, and you do discovery and you do data collection and many things like that. And you document it and show the stakeholders and you iterate on that until you agree, until the stakeholders understand that you have understood their processes correctly. And once you've done that, you can go into identifying requirements, and then there's design and so on. And so there's iteration within each phase, and there's also iteration between phases. So if you get to design, for example, and you realize you've forgotten something or something needs to change in the requirements or conceptual model, you can always go back and iterate. The other thing that happens if you're doing Agile and you're building up a backlog and constantly grooming that and reordering it, then you're always by default kind of iterating between these different phases, and you've got many different people operating in all these phases. Now I've made up a grid that shows how all the ideas in chapters 3 through 8 map to this. And they roughly go from upper left to lower right, which means the information in the BABOK in the 6 core chapters for the CBAP that we're studying now is kind of in the flow of what you do through a project in time, but it's written not giving a prescriptive way to go about things. And I think they did that, and I've been saying this since early 2018 because they wanted it to be completely general, and they don't want to give you a rote process to go through and say, if you do these things, it'll work and you're done. And because that's never the case. But I think that if you actually understand what's going on in terms of this picture and a couple of others, it really unifies everything. Here is the requirements traceability matrix. It shows how everything should map forwards and backwards. We talked about a couple of weeks ago. This is across phases, but also there has to be a logical mapping of functions to implementation items, UI items, a hierarchy that's kind of within and orthogonal to this. So just as the techniques in the BABOK in chapters 3 to 8 are orthogonal to the previous thing, you have a whole list of traceability items that are logically within the design that would be orthogonal to this in the same way. And I think that's one of the things the BABOK kind of talks about traceability in a diffuse way. It talks about logical traceability within functionality, but not so much through time. And I think if we can make that clearer, it would really help. That's the entire BABOK. So again, 3 to 8 is the knowledge areas we're concentrating on now. That's the orthogonal mapping of the 6 chapters along the top chapters 3 through 8, and then all these sub phases identify down the left edge. And then as you see, the bold X's more or less map upper left to lower right. So I think that what the BABOK does is walks you through a standard evolution of things you're going to do within a project without making it explicit. And there are some other things. I have some graphics which show how all of the different phases fit into waterfall, where there's just the 6 phases in a row, but you understand that they really take place in an iterative fashion, and they don't just flow one after another with no interaction. But Agile, you've kind of got the first 3 loading in a cycle. You're always doing them, you're feeding a backlog, and then you're pulling them off a backlog to do the last 3 items in a cycle. And that clarifies that. The other thing to understand about this diagram is that it's not just doing the work within a project, it's also improving your process with your stakeholders and within your teams and all your development and DevOps stuff. So this is really operating at many levels. It's mostly targeted at doing the actual work of the engagement to solve the problem, to set up a new system or product, but in reality, it's several levels deep. One thing I always point to is a presentation that one of the authors of the Agile Manifesto, he gave it in 2015, which says Agile is dead. And all he's saying is, don't pay attention to all the details. What you're really trying to do is talk to each other. Make sure you're all on the same sheet of music, and then change course. And all this does is formalize a way to do that in a way that's not particularly, it looks it, but it really isn't prescriptive and limiting. It's meant to enhance what you do and give you context for everything you do, but not force you to do X, then Y, then Z. So that's all I'll say for now. But that really clarifies everything for me. And as I've had the privilege of listening to a lot of speakers in the last few years, everything they say matches up with this or fits into this in some way. And this made it very easy for me to take the exam, and that's before I'd really clarified and formalized this understanding.
Very good. Well, I've gotten PowerPoint to work now. That's as far as I could get. Does anyone have any questions about what Bob had?
I have a question regarding the traceability metrics. Do you guys usually often use it in your agile projects? Like, is
I've
it
not
helping?
used a traceability matrix outside of just using an Excel spreadsheet for requirements and identifying dependencies and priorities within that. How about you, Sid?
So I have to like stay very close to the people who provide me data. Like, okay, my bosses expect me to know if the person providing me data, like let's say she's a woman, if she's going on maternity leave, I have to know when. So I have to be very close to people who provide me data, right? And to that point, I came up with like you were using Excel spreadsheets, right? But I use that too, but I automate mine. So like in the sense of like, if the person providing me data, I look at the properties of that spreadsheet to see if that author changed, because if that author changed, then something in their process might have changed. So then I should reach out. So like I use all kinds of weird like indicators to figure out if something has changed upstream before anyone actually forgot to tell me.
Right.
Are you using this some also for like release management, planning releases as well?
Well, in my world, I was in IT, but now I'm kind of like merged into the finance department. So all I do is reports.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's still on a quarterly schedule and everything has to be delivered on time and accurately. So a lot of those IT principles that I used to do, right, I carry them into the finance department. But again, it's a free for all in this place, right? It's not, there's no structure in the finance department whatsoever. It's just get it done. So
Interesting.
One
Yeah.
thing I'll share is everything I said happens on very small projects that may be very informal, up to Judge Gunda's projects that may need a lot of documentation and formal tracking. A formal RTM can be very time consuming. There are ways to do it. You should add enough overhead to match the complexity appropriate to your project. A small thing, you might do half of the stuff kind of implicitly without thinking about it. But if you have a giant project with 15,000 requirements, the only way you've got a prayer of keeping track of all that is by having a lot of formality and automation. So this approach scales. So you should do what's appropriate for your situation.
That's a great way to close out the meeting. We are at time, folks. I apologize for the technical difficulties. As you know, you can't control things like this. But I will test it again before we have our next meeting. We will go over the things that we're supposed to go over this time. I do encourage you to also review the techniques chapter just to get a high level understanding of the techniques, since those do seem to be rearing their heads in these questions. Is there any questions before we close the meeting?
One thing that was helpful in the training course I took was all of us, there were maybe 18 people in the class, and we'd all take turns doing a little talk or presentation on each of the techniques. So I ended up doing some blog posts so I could do screen shares, but if everyone wants to do a handful and share those, that would be a neat way to go. We could divide up the work that way. If
You mean
you're interested.
going over the techniques, like everybody take 5?
Right.
Well, I'm up for that. I'll take the first 5. Who wants the second 5? And let's plan on doing this after we come back after Thanksgiving. So it gives us a couple of weeks before we do that.
trying
Okay.
to share what, well, like they take those techniques from the BABOK and just represent them, or based on your experience, tell how you used to use those techniques, or
Whatever you think is useful to everyone.
okay.
So,
I would say that if you have experience
use
using it, bring it forth.
yeah, definitely put yourself into it if appropriate. The other thing you can do is look through the list and find things you're really passionate about. Because you're here, you get first shot.
That's
So
true.
pick 5 and do that, and Sid can do the same. And at the end, I can do whatever 5 or left over that no one else wants, which
Oh,
will
that's
be
great.
probably a good learning experience for me.
Okay, so everybody who wants to send me 5 techniques that you would like to cover between now and say Thanksgiving. And then when we come back from Thanksgiving, we'll take turns going through those and let you just spend 10 minutes presenting. Seriously, 10 minutes presenting 5 techniques. You don't have to go so deep into them. You can take more time if you want to, but I'm not going to say you got to present a whole meeting over it. We want to get people familiar with it. We don't want to blow them out of the water. So send it to me on LinkedIn, and you get first choice of the ones you want. If you have experience with it, even better. Okay, guys, I'm going to close the meeting. Thank you for your time. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties, but as you know, we can't control those things. We do the best we can. Y'all have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you next week.
All right. See you
Thank
guys
you.
next week.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye bye.